people coming out and saying, let's put Dustin in as Flash. Let's put Amell in as Arrow. Those guys nailed those fucking roles. Like, I mean, Dustin was spot on Flash. Like, he just got it. He understood the character. He nailed it. And Amell, tell me this, just from what we've been seeing with Stephen Amell on Heels, right? We're starting to see those acting chops. He's starting to show some range there and starting to show some stuff. Wouldn't you like to see Amell back as Arrow and go into the alcoholic storyline where he starts to go down the drain as an alcoholic and starts to lose his shit and starts to get fucked up? I mean, I think that a lot of people that aren't comic book fans don't realize that he had a very similar story to Iron Man, where he was on top of the world and then he started this spiral downfall, gets addicted to alcohol, becomes an alcoholic, and just has, he gets kicked out of being the mayor, and just like I would love to see him pull off that storyline. I think he would be phenomenal at it. And then again, are we going to go that route? Do we see Speedy? And if we see Speedy, are we going to show that he's a drug addict? Right. Are we going to, because wait, we've got Green Arrow as an alcoholic and his ward is a drug addict. Are we going there, or are we keeping it all lovey-dovey, happy, fresh, inspiring? Because remember, that was a big complaint from a lot of people towards the Snyderverse, is that it was too dark. It was too heavy. That's not DC. They're more uplifting and lighthearted. So where are we going to go with these characters? Because I feel like the Arrowverse, while it had comedy and some lightheartedness, it was dark. It was built on a dark kind of a section of that. So would we see that? I don't even know.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like, they did what they did. Let's just put it that way, for the Arrowverse and for the CW, and it was all amazing. Let's be honest about it. What Greg Berlanti did was phenomenal, starting this whole universe and even being better than the movies, because you always hear about how movies are supposed to be better than TV shows, but in this case, TV shows were better than the movies. But in my opinion, I think you just need to hand the torch off. I think, it's time. I think, like we talked about, rebooting is just recasting. So in different stories, getting into different things. So I think it's time for just all of those actors to walk away from it. I really loved them in those roles, but I would much prefer just to recast, in my opinion.
Do you think, though, because Berlanti clearly showed that he had an understanding of the characters, because they were very comic book accurate. Mm-hmm. Do you keep him on as a consultant? Do you bring him on and say, consult with our other people to make sure that they're going in the right direction with comic book we know Gunn is. Gunn gets the costumes right. He gets the characters right. He's always comic book accurate. But he's not going to direct every film. He's not going to write every film. So do you keep somebody like a Greg Berlanti on as a consultant to kind of guide along these other ones that are like, hey, you're veering off a little bit from the accuracy of who this character is. Can we reel that back in a little bit? Because I feel like if you do recast everybody, don't use anybody from the Arrowverse or anything like that, but that you have a guy along with Gunn who understands the characters, who is a fan of the characters and keeps it on track for accuracy. Because again, going back to the Marvel thing, I think that's why Marvel worked so well early, is because it was so comic book accurate. The costumes were accurate, the origins were accurate, the powers were accurate. They took a little leeway here or there, but nothing so far off the beaten path that fans didn't like it. So I think that's necessary in this reboot for the DCU, is to keep it comic book accurate.
I think he should be DCU's Jon Favreau. I mean, just always be an executive producer, always be there on set, being able to give his 2 cents if it's needed, that type of thing. So I just feel like, he would definitely be a great resource. Now, if he wants to do that, because he's been doing it for so long, that's the real question.
That's a good point too. And then I'm really curious. I said step away from Superman, but I want to come back for a little bit. Are we going to see campy Lex Luthor, or are we going to see businessman President Luthor? And because let me just say this. I hope that right out of the gate with Superman Legacy, we don't see Luthor at all, but although we've heard that they are trying to cast him, so I just don't think you need Luthor with Superman all the time. There's a great criminal rogue gallery there that they could pull from, Brainiac and like Bizarro and like all these other kind of things. We don't have to necessarily see Luthor right out of the gate. But I think that it's more of a three-dimensional character with Luthor as the president, the businessman who becomes the president of the United States, who truly believes that Superman is a threat because at some point he will turn on Earth and he's powerful enough to destroy Earth, so they have to stop him or keep him in check to make sure that doesn't happen. I think that's a much more three-dimensional version of the character than just a criminal mastermind who doesn't like Superman. Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
A president who feels that an alien invader is a potential threat to the planet seems legit, right? You can get behind that guy, because I feel like a lot of people on Earth would get behind that guy, because what if he does snap and go nuts and we can't stop him, kind of a thing. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on Luthor. I think that is the way to go with Luthor, because it just makes more sense to me. It's a more interesting character. I also
anything's better than Jesse Eisenberg. No.
And I hope also that we talked about this when we said characters on our top 5 a couple weeks ago, when we said characters that we think should have their own spin-offs or whatever. I hope that they dive deeper into Lois Lane's actual story and why she's the world-renowned famous reporter from the Daily Planet, and not just make her a side piece for Superman. I want her to be a strong woman character that's earned the Pulitzer Prize and is an investigative reporter and has been in dangerous situations with the mob or what. I want to see that, and I hope that we get that, and not just she's a reporter and she wrote a story about Superman and now she's famous. I want to see more of like who Lois actually is. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Well, I feel like we pretty much covered everything across the DCU right now that's being talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing else can really jump out at me, but I am excited for the future. That's the first time in a long time that I've said that about the DCU.
Yeah.
Or just in general for DC Universe. Moviegoers, for comic book accuracy, for TV shows, all these different things. So it's weird. It's weird to feel this way.
No, it is.
About superheroes that I felt like haven't been given their justice in quite a long time.
Well, and it's all going to come down to, and Gunn is well aware of it. Gunn is taking his time and he's trying to do because I think he understands that the entire DCU, the future of those characters on big screen, is going to rest on the success or failure of the new Superman movie. Does it launch the whole thing and it's massive, or does it kill it and they say they move on and don't try it anymore? That is going to be the deciding factor, is that movie. To just wrap it up really quick, one last thing. Do you think, because Gunn has already said that other heroes exist, they're already around, do you think that they should do what Marvel did and do a slow build, and we get a Justice League movie or a Justice Society movie or a Green Lantern Corps or what? Or do they just, hey, they already exist, so now let's throw them in? I mean, where do you think the proper way to do that? I know we're going to see several of the characters in Superman because they've already said that. So, but do you do it quick, or do you extend it out?
I don't know, man, because we have the best of both worlds, right? We saw the quick version with DC beforehand, rushing the Justice League movie. But then we've seen the slow burn that was the MCU that led up to the Avengers. So that's a great question, and honestly one that I don't necessarily have an answer for you. I think it all depends on the leadership. But I mean, of course, people, fans, enthusiasts would love to see like the group movies sooner rather than later. but I also feel like there's something special about building up that storyline, especially when you've lost the fans' trust.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to need to gain that back first before we rush into anything.
Especially, too, because you're going to be introducing characters. I mean, he's already announced a few characters that unless you're a comic book fan, you have no fucking clue who they are.
No idea.
You need time to show those story arcs and develop those characters so that non-comic book fans can become attached to them. You can't just throw them into a group movie and go, you're just going to love them. Right? That's what you have to build that characters over time to get people invested in them. So I think that's why I think they should do it just a little. You can show that they exist, but don't just throw them all into some big, massive, epic movie without before giving them some character development and letting people see who they are. Right? I'm fine with a cameo here or there so that you know they exist in the world, but I want to know more about them before you just give me like they're the star of the movie. What? Like, I don't even know who it is. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we kind of see that. That's. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, man.
We ain't gonna see shit until the strikes are over.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. I'm excited about it. Fingers crossed. All in that this Superman becomes what Christopher Reeve's and Richard Donner's Superman was for me. I hope it's that type of a superhero film that just launches something epic and that inspires young filmmakers and does all this kind of stuff. I'm hoping and praying that that's what we get and it launches everything.